Hello everyone, and welcome to another special comic book vault. I am Captain Logan.
I am Deadpoolzilla.
Deadpoolzilla, thanks for joining me again. We go back to crossover land. It's time for more crossovers, and today we're going to tackle Super Secret Crisis War, which is an IDW crossover that came out in 2014 that mixes a bunch of popular 90s Cartoon Network shows and kind of makes fun of big events in comics in general, although it doesn't do as much of parroting that as maybe I would have liked. But this is written by Louis Simonson with art by the always fantastic Derek Charm. I have to say that his artwork is my favorite thing about this, and I have a hard time not just buying everything he does. Charm is just wonderful.
You could say he's charming.
He is, absolutely. Man is a master at cartoon layouts. At panel layouts, and the cool. I'll just go to art right away. The coolest thing about this book visually is that he authentically creates every character in the style that they were originally. Like, this looks like it's drawn by like 6 different artists. It's really cool.
That's what I really like about this, is that everyone is not written or drawn. Why did I say that? I'm real tongue-tied right now. This is all, like, they're all drawn in how you would see them in the cartoons, and it doesn't feel like, oh, it's just Samurai Jack drawn as how he would look at if he was in Powerpuff Girls or vice versa. It's very much a comic that really kind of gets, like, the designs of the characters, but not so much the characters themselves, I'm sorry to say.
Well, we'll get into that. I don't agree with that wholeheartedly, but I know what you're talking about. I think the real novelty here, and I'll say this for anybody that is just gonna listen to a couple minutes of this video and didn't actually read this and wants to go read it. The real novelty to this is getting to see all those styles put together. So it's really fun as a crossover, that not only do you get to see these characters interacting together, but you can kind of imagine if you put them all on screen together in a cartoon and just cut and pasted the character models all in one world, like, what would that look like? And that's really fun. That's my favorite thing about it. I wish we could get out of the central single locale, which is my biggest complaint about this book, is that it all takes place in one really kind of boring landscape, and we just aren't ambitious enough to really go nuts with it. But I think it stays as engaging as it does because Charm somehow or rather does not seem bored by that in the way that I am.
No, he doesn't, and I will agree that I feel like the following ongoing that was like the sequel to this really played with the whole
much better.
Yeah, it's much better.
And we should cover that at some point. That's Powerpuff Girls Super Smash Up. It's wonderful.
It feels like a Marvel team-up book, but it's just a little prerequisite regardless. But
yeah, you're right. It's basically a bunch of one-shots that are loosely tied together. Kind of vignettes. Like heavy metal.
Exactly. Except, this is a little less gratuitous.
Kid-friendly, and yeah, right. And there's not a weird big ball of energy flying around that barely connects everything together.
Yeah, nor do we have John Candy playing a robot, which I want.
And well, you can't have that. I'm sorry to say. Unfortunately, deceased people cannot come back and do voiceovers.
I know. That's what upsets me, but
it's so sad. Yeah. So anyway.
This crossover, like, the big draw here is that you're seeing all these characters come together, and this is the first time like this had ever happened. The closest thing we ever got animated wise was the Codenamed Kids Next Door Billy and Mandy crossover. And also little vignettes they did throughout the early 2000s on Cartoon Network, all the characters meeting in one big city.
Right, true. And you also get a lot of kind of Easter eggs between the shows that are more in the like Genny Tartakovsky style. So you have certain like like cartoon shows and things that all those characters watch that sort of links the universes. But you're right, you never see like the Powerpuff Girls actually meet Dexter, which we could have done, and I think people would have really liked that.
Oh yeah, definitely, and that's the big draw here: seeing all these characters together. Like okay, for those who are unaware, the main players of this of this quote unquote event are Samurai Jack, the Powerpuff Girls, Ed, Edd n Eddy, Ben 10, and Dexter. And the whole story is they are trying to stop Mandark, Vilgax, Aku, and Mojo from blowing up the multiverse, essentially.
Right, or from each doing what they want to do separately because they can't come together and actually decide on anything, which is funny but gets a little bit tedious. I think on the bad guy side, the best thing about this is that it's all about that question I always have with Saturday morning cartoon villains, which is, do you want to blow up the world or do you want to take it over? And each of these separate villains has their own motivation. And it's a quagmire to imagine how in the world they all got together in the first place, because it's basically just Aku's world and they're all living in it. Well, and Vilgax, because those two are really butting heads and are kind of the alpha males in the room. And but I think it's funny that Louise Simonson just throws them all in this kind of battle world place together and doesn't even give us a sense of how they met or got together in the first place.
There's actually a comic. There's actually a prequel comic to this.
Is there really? What is that?
Yeah, it's actually collected in the second volume with all the tie-ins, which I found really stupid. Like, that's really dumb. Why put the prequel to the comic?
Yeah, it sounds like it's just a zero issue.
Yeah, it pretty much is Aku is traveling between universes to get Mandark, Vilgax, and Mojo, and they come up with this big plan that makes no sense.
Well, I'm gonna cry foul that wasn't issue 1, or that there wasn't a Crisis for issue 0, for a couple of reasons. First of all, I mean, I said it's kind of funny that they're just all there already, but if we actually do get to see those dynamics start to form, I would have liked that, because it might have informed this. I haven't read that, so I don't know. But also, every big event does a 0 issue. And if you're making fun of those things, do that.
Yeah, the whole story is like Aku goes between universes, and each villain has their own idea, and Aku goes, "Great, we'll throw it in there."
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm irritated that that's not in the book proper, and I don't know how I didn't know about that. What is it called?
It's just called Super Secret Crisis War, the prequel, I believe.
That's nonsense. That really irritates me. Somehow or other, I didn't even know about it.
Yeah, when I was reading it. Yeah, why wasn't this in the first volume? Why is it with the tie-ins?
Thank you for telling me that, because, and see, this is the problem sometimes with buying singles over trades, is I don't want to get into irritating like pull list inside baseball stuff for people that don't buy singles, but when you put things on your pull list in like a digital subscription, you which, by the way, Comixology is about to start ending, and comic shops are scrambling to figure out how they're going to replace it, but that's neither here nor there. If you're putting your pulls on a digital list like that, there's never a way to just take all the tie-ins and all the different parts of it, of like an event like this, and just pull all of them. You have to go in separately and pull all the separate names of things. And if you don't know about them all, you're sunk. And the only way to do that is to meticulously keep up with previews. And so the nice thing about trade buying is much of the time you'll end up getting to read that stuff that people reading singles might have missed. But then going the other way, sometimes things will come out in the singles that I'll know about that didn't make the trades. And then and especially stuff that should have, and that really informs the story, and that you kind of need, and then the trade buyers are screwed. So any way you go, it's really easy to miss stuff.
Yeah, that's the sad truth right there, and
that's the sad truth right there.
That should be the whole name of this comic.
That's the sad Cartoon Network. That's the sad truth right there.
That should be the slogan for current Cartoon Network right there.
That's hilarious. But yeah, so no, I'm glad you told me about that. I'm glad to know that. See, that is much funnier. That he's just like, okay, I kind of want these villains to help me out, so I'm going to sort of pretend like I can give them all what they want, even though these motivations don't go together.
No. It's not like the motivations don't go together. He's just like, oh, that's cool. Let's do that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, are you sure that it's not just unreliable and that he's not just manipulating them? Because when you get to the end of the book, it sure seems that way.
That's the thing, like, it's so Aku's written so inconsistent, and that's not the only character written inconsistently.
Yeah.
Because Aku, in Samurai Jack, he can be written as both, and I get that, yeah, as a fan of the show, I know that Aku can be both, like, this big, menacing, like, dark side-esque character, and at the same time, he can be just a kind of a jerk when he wants to be. But here, they just kind of really play on the jokey side a little too hard.
Okay.
And Aku is really just kind of playing around, and by the end of it, you're like, well, wait, why did you do this to begin with? Like, why do the whole robot army hero thing if you're just going to blow up the planets anyway? And even Aku's like, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, Aku acts like he doesn't want to actually destroy everything. He just wants to take places over, and it's Vilgax that's more obsessed with actually destroying worlds.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. Is like everyone's kind of like their own. But I will agree that it's different villains. They all have their own thing of, you want to blow it up, or do you want to say, or do you want to rule it? That's what are we doing here, boss?
Yeah, and then Mojo ends up getting sucked into the hero side because he really just wants to rule his world, and he thinks he can make it better. And there's always that question of, like, how villainous is Mojo actually really? And I would argue that there are a couple characters that Simonson really nails, and Mojo's one of them.
Yeah, that is true. And there was, I don't know how true this is, but apparently there was another idea to do, like, a parody of Forever Evil.
Oh, okay.
And Mojo was going to be, like, taking the Luthor role.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Which is kind of essentially what he does here, except that this is kind of retread territory for Mojo, because, I mean, he does do this kind of thing quite a bit, and like, it's we've done this ending in Powerpuff Girls episodes at least a couple of times. In the original series, where you get to the end and the narrator is like, the day is saved thanks to Mojo. No, I don't save the world, I rule it. No, you saved the day, Mojo. No, I did not. Yeah, yes you did, Mojo. And that's kind of how this ends, which is fun.
Yeah, and the other thing with this is that some of the heroes, like Ed, Edd, and Eddy, I feel like get the worst of the mischaracterization because you've never watched Ed, Edd, and Eddy, if I'm correct.
And I should mention that I'm really only here for two shows. Powerpuff Girls and Dexter. So I kind of suspected that Deadpoolzilla would probably have more to say about this than I do, because I really can only weigh in on the story as a whole and how it acts as a parody and just as, a cartoony story, and then what it does with those characters. I'm happy to report that the characters I'm here for are all characterized pretty well. Dexter's fine, Mandark's fine, and then all the stuff with Powerpuff Girls is really good. I gotta mention, I think my favorite kind of like pairing of characters from other shows in this has got to be Samurai Jack and Bubbles. It's wonderfully charming. It's hilarious. It's wonderful. They should get their own miniseries. It's great.
I actually love that moment where they look at each other and go, "I'll protect you."
Yes, and then later when they're like, I saved you. It's great.
But here's the thing with Ed, Edd, and Eddy is that they're not superheroes. They're a trio of just idiots. Their whole thing is that they want to get jawbreakers and money. They rip people off. That's what they do. And honestly, when Eddie's like, "Oh, we gotta save the world. We gotta be heroes," I'm like, Eddie. If this was because here's the thing, Eddie would honestly go join the villains if he could think he could make a profit off of it. He would sell everybody out if he could get at least a quarter. And yeah, Double D does not say dude. I'm sorry, but he does not say dude.
See, I can't really weigh in on that side of it because again, I haven't really watched that other than to say that like I think the idea at least is supposed to be that because I mean I like that seems pretty represented toward the beginning where it's like these are just these kind of goofball kids that don't belong here and they're not trying to be heroes and then but I think the idea is supposed to be they've never been in a situation like this and so like what would they be like if they got stuck in this scenario and might that change them in some way? But I don't know if that's done effectively because I haven't watched that show.
And I could say no, it doesn't because they go right back to trying to get Jawbreakers and the whole realistically, Eddie, Ed would be the only one. Ed's the unibrow. Ed would be like, oh my god, I'm a hero now, and that's the thing is like he's an idiot and a super strong idiot. But he's a good guy. Double D's like the voice of reason. Eddie's the jerk who tries to scam everyone. So honestly, yeah, I would have loved a moment where Eddie just sells everyone out.
But I guess the question is, would they all still be like that if they knew like the world was in peril and the stakes were this high?
Trust me, Eddie does not have
it wouldn't make any difference.
No, like if he could get at least a quarter from somebody, he'd do it.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, like Ben 10, like I'm not from like the farthest I got with Ben 10 was Alien Force, so I'm not familiar. And this is Omniverse Ben 10. And I'm fine with that. Like I haven't watched the show, but I get the gist of it. And
yeah, I mean they make his power set pretty clear. What he's able to do. When he turns it, because I don't know anything about him at all. People have asked me for years to cover the TV movies on Rewind, and I just haven't looked at him yet. But I wasn't sure. You'll have to explain this to me if you've watched enough of that show. When he turns into different creatures and they all have different names, like do they have their own personalities, or is he just looking like something else?
He just looks like something else,
okay.
And when he takes on those aliens, he gets their abilities, but he doesn't have like alternate. The only one who had like a different personality was this alien called Ghost Freak, and that one broke away from the Omnitrix and became a villain later on.
Oh, cool.
But
I liked him in this well enough. He seems like kind of just a real typical superhero leader type.
Yeah, that, like at this point, like with Omniverse, is that he has done a lot. Like he's saved the world about 10 times, so he's a leader of a team. He's almost like because he's a part of this group later on called the Plumbers, which are like the Men in Black of that universe. Mm-hmm. And his grandfather was one too. And at this point, he had already like led several teams, and he had been in charge multiple times of several teams. So him being a defunct 2 leader almost is kind of like that's the logical choice.
Yeah, and obviously you've got Blossom here too. So like those two kind of seem to try to lead the team.
Yeah, but though I'm surprised, like because Ben's very competitive and he's always like it's about me. But then again, he at this point he had grown up, so maybe he'd matured and been like, yeah. Because if this had been like the original Ben 10 show from like 03 or 05, he'd have been like, no, I'm in charge, you're not.
Oh, and it would have been more dysfunctional because obviously we have your real typical like the heroes can get along because they're not just out for themselves, and the villains can't get along because all they care about is themselves.
Yeah. So if this was like younger Ben 10, this would have been a little more dysfunctional. But considering that he's like late teens, he's like, yeah, I've done this before. I'll lead the way, but you can help out too, Blossom.
So I'm going to step back a minute and ask you kind of my big question, which is, do you think this story warrants 6 issues?
It does not.
It does not. I think it has, in a way, it has kind of the same thing that Doctor Who Star Trek has in that way.
Where it meanders,
it's just real padded, yeah. Well, I mean, it's at least just not padded with flashbacks to things I know already. That's good. I appreciate the fact that, like, I will give it this. I think Simonson does a pretty good job of making this both for people who are familiar with all these characters and people that are only familiar with like one, and that's kind of easy to do because they're not like the deepest and richest characters in the world. I mean, they're cartoon characters, and I'm not saying that there's no depth to them at all, but it is pretty easy to jump into this and get the gist, as you said earlier, of each of these characters and the ones that you're not familiar with, right? Like I like that she doesn't feel the need to like give you a bunch of recap and explain background of things like we did with that Doctor Who Star Trek thing, but it's really weird that it's padded out all in scene without those flashbacks, and we kind of just, I don't know, we need to go somewhere. That's my big thing with this. We don't really even get a move on with. I don't think the story gets remotely interesting until like the end of 5. And I mean, like, there's some fun banter and there's some fun like pairings and things, like I said, but it's not really until I said into 5, maybe into 4, I forget where it is. It's not. It doesn't start making me kind of curious to keep moving forward beyond just looking at the artwork until the villains give out the ultimatum of you can either see your world destroyed or you can. Like if you don't let us put your minds in these robots, we're gonna destroy your world. Which are you gonna pick? I don't think it gets interesting until that happens.
Yeah, that's the sad part of it, and like I would have preferred some world hopping. I know that happens in the other comic, but I don't know, like it just feels like everything, like the station itself feels very generic. Like I would have loved to see like if all 4 villains built this, like each, like there's different sections that are like akin to something they would build, like Mandark section.
Point. Yeah, his section, he's got his laboratory, not laboratory. If you're Mandark, it's a laboratory.
And you've got like Mojo's half looks a lot like the inside of his base. Like nothing that makes it look like it's all one thing. Like it would have been cool to have some unique settings at least in the building.
That's such a good point. Yeah, the emphasis is too much on the secret part. I mean, that's why we do that, right? Where like we can't do a bunch of dimension hopping because then people would know about it, and then you can't have the secret part. But I think if that's the reason that it all takes place in this one, like makeshift planet in a pocket dimension, we're overthinking that.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is like just like I didn't need the secret part to be a literal part of this comic.
And I don't know about you, I just don't think it goes far enough in being a parody.
No, it doesn't. Like it. Like I would have loved to have seen like maybe instead of the Death Stare, because that's what it's called. The Death Stare, like instead of destroying universes, it reboots them.
That's very funny. Sure, yeah. There should have been more of like, it would have been really cool if there was a blend of worlds, because we like to do that a lot in these crisis things, right? Where like oh no, all these realities that take up the same physical space are like conjoining and becoming the same place, and what what's gonna happen. Like I don't think it's cosmic enough. It's not big enough for that title.
Yeah,
and that title makes a contract with you, and it just doesn't go far enough. It's absolutely not as ambitious as it ought to be with a title. Like it should be just really audacious and insane. And frankly, I don't care if the pseudoscience makes any kind of sense. It's a goofy Cartoon Network thing. Like we don't go far enough.
Yeah, that's the big problem. And like again with the Death Stare, like maybe it's like I said with rebooting universes, or even have it like it blends all the universes together at the end,
right?
And that way. Yeah, and you could have like all the other characters that were in the tie-ins come in at the last second and just be like, "Okay, everybody, fight."
There's really no reason those characters couldn't have been somehow blended in, even with like some fun cameos and things. This just needs to be bigger and more insane, and Charm is obviously up to that task.
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, like there never felt like with all the characters he was drawing, it like never felt. It never felt like it was overcrowded, or no one felt like it slacked a bit. It almost felt like Charm, he's almost like he's got a Phil Jimenez or George Perez kind of thing with all the characters together, and it still works, instead of like some of them feel a little like murky in art.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's always as much detail as you need, and he's just incredibly good at like we said earlier, mimicking these styles and being able to put them all on the page. I don't know how he does that. I mean, I suspect that he does a lot of digital artwork.
Probably, I'm not sure.
But it works. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's what helps me from getting bored.
Yeah, it's definitely the art, but there needs to be some substance with the Flash. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I was a little bit, and I hate this because I love Simonson. I've always really admired her, but she is a strange choice.
I guess it was a big name writer. That was I guess that was the big thing. Is like, hey, we got Louise Simonson here. She'll be writing all these characters you love. Isn't it going to be great? Yeah, and honestly,
people have got to be scratching their heads and being like, was she a big fan of these characters in the '90s? Like, is she a big animation fan? Like, maybe she is. I feel like you can see maybe she wasn't, and she had to research all these shows. Who knows? But
that's what it feels like with some of the dialogue, honestly.
But not with everybody. Like with some people, it feels like she's either a super fan of certain characters and not others, or she just gets certain ones that she had to research other than others. And I don't want to make assumptions because I haven't heard her talk about this, and I don't know that she has ever talked about this. But I would really like to know what her background was, and why she was picked for this, because it's just not grand enough. This should be really epic and insane. And for instance, the Death Star thing. Like, how often have we made fun of the Death Star and called it like a Death something else? And they treat that as like a big funny reveal. I'm looking for parody material of big crossovers and making fun of the fact that they're too big and complicated. And honestly, this should have been. And I'm saying this because it kind of pretends like it is. This should have been really convoluted and in a funny way hard to follow.
Yeah, I remember they did the Sonic Mega Man crossover, and they made so much fun of the New 52 and Flashpoint, and how that all.
The problem is I've seen this done too well in other places, right? Because a lot of what I don't know. You would have expected some criticism or some commentary about the industry in something like this, and everything I kind of was hoping for here to some degree is in a couple of other things. Sonic Mega Man is one. I thought of that too, and then which is, by the way, wonderful. And then
that future.
Yeah, Eric and I have been talking about it forever. But maybe I can get you on that, and the three of us can do it.
Yeah, totally.
But the other thing is, I don't know if you've ever read this, but the big hardcover Simpsons Futurama crossover.
Yeah, I've read that.
It does everything this does, or this kind of sets up, at least with the idea, like 10 times better.
Yeah, that's the sad part. Is the Simpson Futurama comic does this better.
The sad truth. And again, I don't mean to project what I wanted on it versus what it's trying to be, and I don't mean to make it too much just about that title, but with the very premise, it obviously is trying to parody these kinds of things, and it just isn't. It's just not crazy enough.
Yeah, why? I would have loved to seen, because obviously if you're parodying events, why not this? Why not have? Because even though I said Ben's kind of matured, why not have a brief scene where him and Blossom argue, and it almost turns into a fight like in Civil War, and then Samurai Jack or Double D goes, "Hey, why are we doing this? We got villains to fight," and they're like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, it'd be funny if obligatory things happen, and then the characters comment on it. They're like, "Wait, I don't even know why we're doing this."
Yeah,
why are we having a fight right now? Now, I will say, I guess that's refreshing. It's kind of fun that A, the heroes kind of get along, and B, they don't feel the need to have a big fight anywhere. But if you're making fun of this material, then that's precisely what you should do. So are you trying to make a better event, or are you making fun of events?
You can't.
I guess you could do both simultaneously, but this is not accomplishing that.
It fails on both levels, and again, you said earlier, Ed, Edd, and Eddy are the eyes going in. Honestly, though, I would, as much as I love Ed Nettie, I wish I would have preferred to take him out and like put Johnny or
Johnny
you
Bravo.
know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
or the kids next door. They would have been better suited for this.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about them, but
but Johnny Bravo, like he'd have been tons of fun. He not only would be a great good eyes going in. Could you just imagine him on that station? Like none of you are 18, huh?
yeah.
Or
Yeah,
something like
there are no women here, and he just cannot handle that.
yeah. God, could you just imagine the banter between him and Mojo? I would pay money for a Mojo
That's pretty funny.
Mojo Bravo team up.
Yeah, so I don't know. I just want to reiterate. I think Mojo's great in this.
Yeah, he is one of the shining moments of this comic, and
the dissension in the rank stuff with the villains is fun. It just goes on too long.
Yeah, it just like that really drags a bit, especially with Mandark being like, "Why am I the apprentice?"
Yeah, I couldn't get excited about that. But like I don't know, the big question about like which planet is he gonna choose, I guess was handled okay.
Yeah, but that was like at the end of it, you're like, all right, just wrap this up. We're because by the end of it, you don't like we've been kind of running around fighting robot versions of the heroes on this one place for so long, and then suddenly you throw this out. You're like, all right, you're already late in the game, so why not, right?
Yeah, and when you do an idea like this where you're gonna have like robot clones of all these characters and we're just gonna fight them on a space station, I think that's kind of lame. I think it would have been a lot more fun if this opened with they've already been put out into the world. I mean, I know that's rewriting the story because the idea is supposed to be, and I sort of like this that like we have these robots but they're not good enough. They kind of like mimic the power sets, but what we really want is the experience. So can you, and so then there's potentially kind of a fun identity question there where it's like, can you take the experiences and understanding of the world from these unique perspectives, but take the like heroism and altruism out of these characters, and then that experience still count for something. But we don't get to see that play out.
Yeah. The other thing is, like at the beginning of the comic, where they send out all these other robots to each universe. Some of them get taken out really quickly, like the assassin robots, the Bushido robots, the ones with like the rice hats on. I know for a fact from the Samurai Jack show, those things nearly killed him. So why are they getting taken out so easily? Yeah, and then we have the Dynamo in Ed Nettie's world.
Yeah,
which by the way, how did they get the Dynamo?
I don't know. They just have it. Well, yeah, I mean, it gets rebuilt at some point, but why do they have it?
Yeah,
and it's not like that wasn't a Mojo creation. That's a Utonium creation. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, why do you have it, and who rebuilt it? And the other thing, like, when they take it out with the cranes, honestly, Ed and Nettie wouldn't even be bothering with it. They'd just be like, the only one who would like want to fight the robot is Ed because he's obsessed with like the sci-fi monster horror stuff. So he'd be like, giant robot, fight! No, Ed. Because the worst they deal with are three girls from a trailer park who want to force themselves on them. That's the amount of villainy they have to deal with.
Well, and we should mention, like, we kind of start from a real cookie cutter video game plot kind of place with this. And that's where a lot of the padding comes from, right? Where it's like, okay, step one, we have these robots. We're going to make the heroes fight them to prove their worthiness to be taken up and turned into these robots. And I didn't really understand why these characters had to prove their worth. Like, why don't the villains just get to pick? And like that's the like Secret Wars part of it. Is you take heroes from different places and you force them to fight villains and you see who's going to win. Why don't each of the villains just get to pick one? Like, and if you're going to do it this way, might it have been interesting if one of the villains' heroes wasn't up to snuff enough for the rest of the villains and they wouldn't allow them to come up, and that's where some of the dissension comes from. Like, we don't really do anything with that idea, and I'm not sure why it's there in the first place. Like, that whole first issue ends up being sort of superfluous, and it's kind of just there so that we get to, for a minute, actually get to be in some of these other worlds, because these characters have to prove that they're worthy And that's, I don't know, I thought that was very strange.
You know what would have been better instead of robots? Why didn't they go down personally? You could have taken a page out of another Marvel event, Acts of Vengeance, where you have different villains fight different heroes. Like, you could have had, Vilgax go down to fight the Powerpuff Girls to see if they're worthy. Because, you could have the villains are like, oh yeah, he's totally worthy, and another villain go, okay, I'll be the judge of that, and goes down to fight them, be like, oh, he was right. That would have made a little more sense than the robots. I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I also don't know what standards they're judging the heroes metal by, because each of the villains is gonna, if memory serves, isn't it like each of the villains creates their own robot and then sends it to fight their own characters? And
no, they said because they send the Bushido robots after Dexter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but it's different. But I don't know. I don't want to overthink this. And again, it's just a silly cartoon thing. But it's different robots built by different people, and then they go fight these heroes, and then if the heroes win, they're worthy of being kidnapped. And it's like, what's the standard that we're comparing the fighting by? I don't really get that.
It's really weird, and
anyway, I don't know.
The tie-ins themselves are kind of odd because it's mostly just Vilgax and Aku's robots who are thrown out into the multiverse, and it's just each character dealing with them, and even then, they're almost treated like afterthoughts in some issues.
Yeah, it's just some kind of an excuse, a contrivance in order to get those other characters in here somehow. And again, it would have been really nice if we just could have come up with a story where we could link them all in the first place. And I get that big events have tie-ins, and so since they're doing a parody of a big event, they want these one-issue tie-ins. But I would have, if you were going to do just tie-ins and not actually have them involved in the main story, I would have much preferred just fun one-and-done one-shots that's another adventure with those characters that doesn't actually have anything to do with this. I mean, I know that then it's not really tie-ins to this, but the robot thing ends up just being kind of lame, and I haven't read those in a long time. I didn't read those for this, but I remember kind of enjoying the Johnny Bravo one, but being disappointed that it's just, a robot shows up, and then...
Yeah, that's the whole thing, and the only thing we get out of this is a squirrel goes to that universe.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that squirrel from something?
No, the squirrel's not from anywhere. It just shows up in the comic, and then it goes back with Ed, Edd and Eddy.
Okay, I was wondering about that because I was trying to I thought the translation things in the notes was funny, but I was trying to figure out if that was from some show I wasn't familiar with or not.
No.
Okay. All right.
But that's the if you really want to have fun with it, go nuts. You have a menagerie of I mean, for some reason, only the 90s and early 2000s Cartoon Network shows were IDW, and the other ones Gumball and Steven Universe and Adventure Time were in Boom. But there was another whole menagerie. You could have put Megas XLR or SWAT Cats or there's a whole list of characters you could have added into this, or even in the tie-in.
I'm not going to fully agree with you. At least that would have been a thing I wanted, because I liked that it was the characters of a particular generation. This is the shows that were big between a set of years in late 90s, early 2000s Cartoon Network, and that's part of what makes this kind of nostalgic, at least for me, is this is what Cartoon Network looked like when I was a big Cartoon Network fan. So I kind of appreciated that. Now, I would have liked Bracken, Space Ghost, and Zorak.
Oh, that have them.
I do wish that had been here.
It would have been a great way to have it they're at the end of the comic and they're just commentating on the whole thing, or even
God, that's hilarious. No, what you do? What you do is
recaps.
You make it Space Ghost Coast to Coast, and he's interviewing these characters.
Oh no, you could have it he's either him and Brax and Zorak are recapping each last issue, oh, here's what happened last time.
Yeah, but it'd be really funny if when it's all said and done, these characters all go on the talk show.
Oh, that'd be great.
But yeah, so I don't know, and you're a bigger modern animation fan than I am, so I get why you might have wanted that. But if you're gonna do that, I would say just do a sequel with the modern characters.
Yeah, that'd have been fun. But like I said, for some reason, half the shows went to IDW and the other half went to Boom, which I never understood.
Yeah, I don't know.
And it's weird because Boom's doing Adventure Time and regular show crossing over right now. But I guess I'll never know. But still, it is still. I will agree with you, Cap, that it is fun, like seeing all these characters meet for the first time. But it doesn't hold up to the hype. That's the sad part of this all.
Well, and it feels almost like there's some kind of imaginary budget, because it's like you're in a comic book, and you can draw anything you want to, but it's almost like we built one standing set and we can't leave it.
This isn't a Canon Pictures IDW. You can do what you want.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want to. It's really strange, but I don't know. Last thing I'll say about this is just to kind of recap and final thoughts. I'm glad I read this. There's a lot of fun to be had here, but it's a little bit disappointing up against the premise.
Yeah, it is a little disappointing, but it is fun to see all those characters, and also, like we've talked about with past crossovers, this actually gives a lot of equal light to all the characters, hero and villain alike.
You're
cast.
right. It's a little Powerpuff centric, but I think that works because they're more straight up superheroes than anybody else in the book.
Yeah, aside from Ben and Jack.
But yeah. Well, but Jack isn't a modern traditional superhero. He's like going back to Ronin and stuff.
Yeah. But still, it is a little Powerpuff centric, but that's because again, Blossom and Ben kind of take leadership.
That was the most popular of these. Indisputably, Powerpuff Girls made them more money than anything else in this.
Oh, totally.
So I think that's kind of understandable, and also I'm biased because that's my favorite thing from it. I bought this because of Powerpuff Girls, so of course I don't mind, and I feel more at home there. So anybody that was disappointed by that's not as big of a Powerpuff fan as I am, I guess I understand that. But IDW was also, keep in mind that it's Derek Charm because he started their Powerpuff Girls, and his Powerpuff Girls is delightful and wonderful. And so this is an extension of that before it's anything, which is why it's kind of understandable and neat that they did the kind of Marvel team up type thing with them right after this, as kind of a direct pouring out of this sort of sequel, which I would like to do with you if you're interested in rereading it, because I loved that.
Absolutely, I really enjoyed that too. And
I don't know that we'll have a whole lot to say. It's kind of just, these were a bunch of fun separate stories, but I would like to read it again.
Oh yeah, totally. But yeah, it's not the worst thing I've ever read, and I hate that I've sounded like through this whole thing I hated this. I really don't. It's just that they really missed the mark here. That's all.
Yeah, it's kind of that's the unfortunate thing about it is it's fun to read, but it's also a little bit dull.
Yeah, when I got this, because I got this at a convention and it had been long over. And,
oh, really?
Yeah, I got this both volumes for $10 on a whole, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cool! I can't wait to read it." And then I read it, and I was like, this is what was so hyped. This is what I wanted to read all this time."
I read it as it was coming out, and I honestly can't tell you right away if I think it reads better monthly or all at once. Because it feels maybe a little bit more grand month to month, because when you read it all together, you start to see where you could have really cut it down, and that it's not really worth 6 issues.
Yeah, I'd have been fine if this was just a 4-parter.
Yeah.
But
anyway.
Yeah, it's just okay. Honestly,
that's the sad truth.
You're never gonna let me live that down.
Oh no, that's getting printed on T-shirts, my friend.
Oh man.
The sad truth.
What was I gonna say?
I don't know. I interrupted you.
I lost my train of thought after getting the sad truth.
Sorry about that. That's the sad truth.
I've totally lost my train of thought, but I will say that it's not terrible. Again, it is cool because you're seeing all these characters meet for the first time, albeit in comic form, and the only place you could have gotten this anywhere else was the RPG game Fusion Fall, which I think got discontinued, but I keep hearing they're going to bring it back, but I don't know. So yeah, to see all these characters meet and team up, it's kind of cool. But at the same time, you really have to keep your expectations at mediocre at best.
I will say, if you adapted this, it would probably work better on television.
It probably would.
Because it wouldn't be as it wouldn't be as long. I mean, you would only make this probably a 60 or 70 minute movie. And although as I'm saying that sounds like too much time for this.
I think you could honestly get an hour 15 minute out of this. Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. I think you could do it in more like 30 or 45. Now that I'm thinking about it, but maybe if you, I don't know, I feel like you could really improve on this, like keep what's here, but actually figure out how to get a little bit of dimension hopping in, and put those other characters in it, and bring in, the one-shots. But anyway, Deadpoolzilla, what are we covering next time, dude?
We are covering the 2 Batman Punisher crossovers.
Oh, cool! I'm so excited about that news that I did not know.
Oh, we are? Wait.
I'm just kidding. I was very aware of what we're doing next time.
Oh, I thought sorry. I was like, oh god, did we agree on something else? I thought that's what.
No, I was making a joke that just didn't quite pan out. That was the sad truth. So anyway, so I have read one of those Punisher crossovers, but not the other. So I'm kind of interested to see what that's like. That was a John Romita thing.
Yeah, that was the other one. Like, and this is the weird part because it's 2 different Batmen, and it's
right.
Yeah.
So I'm working on Nightfall reviews right now for Batcap: The 48-Hour Halloween, when that eventually finally starts getting shot and posted. But so it's going to be so I kind of liked this idea because I've been dealing with Azrael a lot lately, and also we just had the Punisher Netflix show hit, so it's
not to mention with Justice League, so
it's relevant to Geekvolution and to things going on right now in the culture.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, and I think this is the first time we've done Marvel DC together.
No, it's not. They're gonna be horrible, and we're gonna just complain the whole time. That's what's gonna happen, right?
Well, I meant fun of us talking, like.
Oh, okay. No, honestly, I can't speak to the quality yet because one of them I've never read, and the other one I read 20 years ago, so I don't even know. But that was just my joke. No, it's gonna be fun. Yeah, we're just gonna sit down and we're gonna be like, that's not how you make crossovers, and then we're gonna move on.
But no, this is the first time we've done Marvel DC, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, it is. That's true.
Yeah.
Weird. I mean, we did, we did one DC crossover with IDW, but you're right, we haven't done that yet.
Yeah. So this ought to be interesting, and maybe we'll do the others later on. But for right now, Batman Punisher. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Tell your friends. Next time, Batman Punisher, and that is the sad truth. Thanks a lot for listening, and we will see you again soon with another exciting crossover special. And look for the mostly Ninja Turtles themed Geekvolution Omnibus coming out next week with all these separate segments posted as their own shows over the next couple weeks after that. I'm really excited about that. I've been preparing for it the last couple weeks, and it's been nothing but Ninja Turtles in my brain this whole time. So, which is why the last rewind that's getting posted as we're talking about this actually is also a Ninja Turtles thing. But anyway, thanks for listening. I am Captain Logan,
and I am Deadpoolzilla.
I'll see you next time. And that is the sad truth.